Greetings. Let's talk about the most audited IRC Internal Revenue Code sections. There are literally over 10,000 code sections. And the Internal Revenue Code is actually under Title 26 of the U.S. Code. For example, bankruptcy law or bankruptcy code is Title 11. Well, tax law is Title 26. It's enacted by Congress, and it becomes law. And you might ask yourself, well, do I need to know all these code sections? It's useful if you want to. I mean, when I was hired on as an IRS agent with the service, literally I read the entire code section, just had a loving to read it and understand it and expand on it and so forth. It took me 2 years, but I did enjoy it every day. But however, most of the entire audits that you would come across will refer to two types of sections. Number one is Code Section 61, and the second one is Code Section 162. And I would like to discuss what Code Section 61 is. It talks about the gross income. What it is that any income that you make, whether it will be from wages, self-employment, interest, gambling, believe it or not, barter. Let's assume you're in the tax business and you have a contractor you're doing 10 years of returns for, and the job is going to cost $2,000, and you barter with this individual to build you a deck that's worth $2,000. By law, that $2,000 worth of income should be reported. It should be recognized. Anything that is taxable must be included in gross income, including foreign income. Of course, there are foreign income tax credits and so forth. There are exemptions to the earnings. But everything that you make needs to be included in IRC Section 61. So that's income, and you will learn a lot about it in the bank deposit analysis as we discuss income probing by the IRS when you are being audited, or if you have a client that is being audited. The other code section that comes into play that you will use a lot is Internal Revenue Code Section 162, and this refers to trade or business expense deductions. Mainly everything we do in life is based upon a business. Whether you work for someone, that individual has expenses to report, a corporation, a partnership, a Schedule C. Any business that exists has expenses. So under Section 162, is it allowed or is it not allowed per Internal Revenue Code Section 162? For example, let's assume you have a client who's a drug dealer, and this client wants to report his income by selling illegal drugs. Let's say it's heroin. Well, let's assume he made $100,000 a year and his cost of goods were $70,000 to purchase the product. It's not allowed because it's an illegal substance, and therefore it will not be allowed as an expense deduction. The other one I want to point to is Internal Revenue Code Section 183, and that you will come across quite a bit. It's called activities not engaged in for profits. What does that mean? Well, you might have a client that is loves music and belongs to a band and so forth. So this client decides, oh, let me teach on the side, and I'm only going to teach one student, and therefore I get to write off part of my home, and I get to write off my the cost of the grand piano I just bought for $20,000, my utilities, my lessons, etc. of that nature. Well, you know, the IRS would look at that and say, well, you know, is this individual in this business to make a profit, or is it a hobby? So the hobby rules is if you don't make income 2 out of the 5 years, then you're considered to be in the business as a hobby and not in it for profit, and therefore all the expenses will be disallowed, and they will allow expenses maybe up to the income only. The other one that come across, I had a client who just loved horses, And she decided to take one of the Arab horses that she owned and enter them into the races, and therefore she wanted to deduct everything. Well, she's never made a profit in 7 years, so that was troublesome for us to represent, and pretty much we lost the case, and just she had to pay the difference, and that's what happened there. On the page itself, I refer you to websites that will list the Internal Revenue Code sections. Please browse through it, take your time, see what's out there. And you have to also remember that the Internal Revenue Code is law upon the IRS, so if you're representing a client and you want to use it to quote why you've done a certain thing based upon this code section, don't forget the Internal Revenue Services publications are also law upon them. So the publications are also another good source for you to understand, such as publication 17 that deals with the 1040s usually. And again, if you get stuck on a topic, please visit our community. We're there to help you. We'll jump in, we'll answer any questions you might have, and so forth. And now let's go ahead and let's have a little bit of fun with the initial interview. That's what happens usually during the inception of the audit. So turn to the initial interview and let's talk about it. Thank you for watching.